I am an example of what is possible when girls from the very beginning of their lives are loved and nurtured by the people around them. I was surrounded by extraordinary women in my life who taught me about quiet strength and dignity. Michelle Obama.
Human rights are not a privilege granted by the few. They are a liberty entitled to all, and all human rights, by definition, include the rights of all humans, those in the dawns of life, the dusk of life, or the shadows of life. K. Granger.
In the public eye, girls and women with strong perspectives are hated. If you're a girl with an opinion, people just hate you. There are still people who are afraid of successful women, and that's so lame. Billie Eilish.
As long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality persist in our world, none of us can truly rest. Nelson Mandela.
Good morning. My name is Maddie, and I'm a sixth form boarder from Canton, Massachusetts. For as long as I can remember, I've cared about the people. I've been curious about those I don't know, strived to understand those I can't relate to, and battled inequality against others with a fierce empathy. When I was 4 years old, I applied to Milton Academy, a K-12 private school near my hometown. Applying to private elementary schools is like applying to private high schools, but instead of SSATs, I did addition blocks, and instead of writing essays, I put together puzzles. I was accepted to Milton and chose to go not because it would feed me into the advanced middle and high schools, but because it had an art room and my public school did not. How could I say no to that? After my first day of kindergarten, as my parents tucked me into bed that night, they asked if I had seen any of the kids I had played with at the open house earlier in the year. I realized I hadn't and asked why they weren't at school yet. When my parents begrudgingly told me that they may not have been accepted, I sat up in bed and declared, "That's not fair." Growing up going to Milton Academy meant committing to education before I even realized I had the option not to. For the first few years of elementary school, I didn't understand that this was a privilege, or that my experience was different from the vast majority of kids my age. My time at Milton instilled in me, or perhaps fostered a pre-existing love of learning. It allowed me to combine my genuine appreciation of curiosity and my genuine appreciation of others, which has made me who I am today. As I grew older, the holistic education I received at Milton, as well as my parents' commitment to making me aware of other people, quickly revealed to me how privileged I am and how significantly privilege affects our world. I also discovered that many people don't recognize their privilege because they don't realize they have it. We've all heard the idea that you don't truly appreciate something until you lose it. So if we never lose our privilege, it can be difficult to understand what it does for us, or even that it exists at all. So many identities have become political, but if one is privileged enough not to fall into these minority groups, they can exist without politics interfering in their daily lives, and without understanding that this too is a privilege. With this talk, I aim to start a discussion on privilege by sharing some of the infinite lessons I learned last summer when I put my values to the test at the Social Justice Institute at Rosie's Place. I hope that the conversation continues after. Rosie's Place was founded in Boston as the first women's shelter in the United States, only 45 years ago. That's not so far in the past. The founder of Rosie's Place, a woman named Kip Tiernan, volunteered frequently in countless settings throughout Boston and noticed a huge discrepancy. There were no aid centers that allowed women to take advantage of their resources. Food, shelter, and other necessities were only granted to men. Poor and homeless women would dress as men to attempt to get a meal at a men-only shelter. and there was no care for women dealing with poverty and homelessness. Kip responded to this inequity by opening Rosie's Place in the south end of Boston. Her legacy continues to help around 12,000 women at Rosie's Place each year, and her contributions as a founder and co-founder of numerous other organizations have been pivotal for the poor and homeless people of Boston. Walking into Rosie's Place feels like entering a train or bus station. So many paths intersect at once that the weight of lives past and approaching is palpable. A central room has terminals leading to the dining room, the food pantry, laundry, bath, and locker rooms, the waiting room, staff areas, and more. Colorful flyers posted on large bulletin boards advertise community events in 3 to 7 languages. A pair of computers for the guests to use sit on a small table in a corner. The front desk is vast and manned by a few focused, patient women. The entire room is bright. The floors are shiny, the windows are large, and the smell of cigarette smoke is masked by that of clean laundry. The first time I entered Rosie's for my Social Justice Institute, or SJI, orientation this past summer, a woman with a genuine smile shepherded me and the other teenagers who'd been accepted into the program into the dining room, where we had our first meeting. One of the first things I learned was that at Rosie's Place, the women who eat in the dining room, shop in the food pantry, or utilize one of the countless other services Rosie's Place provides, are referred to as guests. I liked this notion immediately. The kindness of the word, the implication that the guests and staff and volunteers are all valued, and the respect of the term, all contributed to the feeling of community. Being a part of SJI meant serving 12 shifts in the dining room or food pantry and attending workshops and presentations. It was during these shifts that I began interacting with the guests at Rosie's Place and, quite literally, came face to face with poverty. Perhaps you've also had a moment like this. I had known about the effects of poverty for a while, had donated to food pantries, and even, through my dad, been closely involved with a private school in Providence for underprivileged kids. But consistently seeing the same women and meeting new ones every day put faces to the facts I already knew. My perspective never shifted, but these impoverished women were no longer an idea or a statistic to me. They were real people who I could smile, talk, and eat with. One day in the dining room, I was in charge of serving soup before dinner. As I handed an older woman her bowl, a bracelet fell from her wrist. Naturally, I picked it up and fastened it back on her arm. Her gratitude for the simple action of returning her jewelry was overwhelming. God bless you, she told me, twice. But I didn't understand why she was so grateful. I realized that a woman struggling to support herself doesn't experience the kindnesses and courtesies that I consider common. As an older, less wealthy woman of color, walking with a cane, this sweet lady, who reminded me of a storybook character in her lime green and bright purple ensemble, was accustomed to being treated with less respect than I was. And yet, despite our differences in age, race, socioeconomic class, and the way the world treated us, this woman and I immediately formed a bond over a simple act of kindness and gratitude. On another occasion, during my first shift in the food pantry, I helped a guest who looked about my age, if not younger. She didn't say a word, just calmly followed me around the pantry, collecting her groceries. I don't know if she was at Rosie's Place alone, if she was in school, if she could even speak English. But I did realize how easily our positions could be reversed. She could be the educated white girl, volunteering in her free time, and I could be the young woman of color, silently picking up her groceries from the food pantry. This is the concept of privilege. I consider myself a good person, and I worked hard for much of what I have. But I can't deny that because of the circumstances of my birth, I have more opportunities, so I'm more likely to succeed. Let's think about our applications to Westminster. We made the choice to apply, got on our computers, and filled out an application. We had good enough grades or strong enough connections or possessed enough athletic skill to be accepted. Now imagine any of us were young guests at Rosie's Place. Getting good grades or practicing our sports might be harder for us because we need to work or watch our younger siblings. Perhaps we don't have connections because no one in our family has been able to seek higher education before. Our family may not even have a computer, much less the money to travel to a boarding school, even if, by some miracle, we were granted a full scholarship. Women end up at Rosie's Place for a number of reasons. Struggles with addiction, mental illness, domestic violence, language barriers, lack of education, the difficulties that come with minority identities, the cycle of poverty, and more, cause women to seek help at Rosie's. There is an unfair stereotype that poor people are lazy, but this assumption couldn't be further from the truth. The women I met at Rosie's work as many jobs as they can get. They fight a daily battle to provide for themselves and their children, in addition to dealing with issues like mental illness, domestic violence, and addiction. Guests at Rosie's Place arrive at their worst, often against their pride, and Rosie's does everything it can to rehabilitate its guests with legal help, resources for education and wellness, community activities, hot meals, and even warm beds on occasion. I don't want to glamorize the experiences I had at Rosie's Place. Sure, I learned lessons, I made friends, I was able to empathize even more with women in my community, and I saw that all is not lost for America's struggling women. But poverty is not pretty. Women unable to carry a bowl of soup due to an injury they can't afford to treat are not pretty. Exhausted women, falling asleep in their dinner, are not pretty. Drug-addicted women, barely able to lift a shaking forkful to their mouths, are not pretty. Women in old clothes, dirty from manual labor, toting children in worn strollers, are not pretty. And yet, despite not being pretty, these women are beautiful. They persevere with a grit unheard of. They thank the Rosie's Place staff by name. They help clean the dining room after a meal. Their courage and resistance is beautiful. I hope that you can take something away from the beauty of the women at Rosie's Place, and that you found a deeper understanding of privilege through my stories about volunteering. My time at Rosie's was unforgettable, and I couldn't possibly cram everything I saw, learned, and came to understand into one talk. But I hope you come to the same conclusion I have. While it is critical to recognize our privilege, it is even more important to use it to benefit others. In case you haven't already guessed, today's offertory is to benefit Rosie's Place and the women who seek solace there. Rosie's Place depends on funding from individuals, foundations, and companies, and receives no aid from the city, the state, or the country. This funding is essential to the center's mission. As the website says, our mission is to provide a safe and nurturing environment that helps poor and homeless women maintain their dignity, seek opportunity, and find security in their lives. The reason Rosie's accepts no governmental funding is because it doesn't want to be regulated by the government. In order to put the women it serves first, always, Rosie's Place must remain a privately funded operation. Because of this setup, any small donation will help improve the quality of these women's lives. $1 might mean a second helping of dessert for the kids that depend on the dining room for their dinner. It could mean another ream of paper for job applications to be printed on. It could pay an English teacher to give classes. Giving, even in small amounts, will change the lives of the women at Rosie's Place for the better. And, in my experience, it will change you for the better as well. Thank you.